Hey HR friends, welcome back. This is part 2 in the two-part series on how to read the space-time clocks. This video will demonstrate how to interpret the hand alignments on these clocks. Alright, let's start with a quick review here. So this is where the macro and micro patterns start, both on the space and time clock. The macro pattern is the large 4-quadrant pattern, and the micro pattern is the smaller 32 shape pattern. Now, it's important to know that it takes 63,360 years for this pattern to complete in the simulated experience. Now, what the heck is happening during that 63,360 years? This is what's happening. The macro pattern is creating a problem, and the micro pattern is trying to solve that problem. And when that problem is solved, a new problem forms, and then the micro pattern solves that problem. So when we look back in time, how can we confirm this? How can we confirm that this micro pattern was helping past civilizations solve their problems? Well, look at all the ancient stone structures all over the world that align with the cardinal directions. Now, on the space clock, you can see that we've highlighted where the cardinal directions are on here. So you have north, south, east, west. Let's talk about this for a quick second. So what do the cardinal directions signify? This is what they signify. They signify a yellow and a green perspective coming together. Well, in part 1, we talked about how the yellow and the green perspective relate to maturing whole-based awareness, okay? So a maturing whole-based awareness means that a male and a female are not only learning about themselves, but all the other members of their family, and they're integrating their two views together so that it creates balance at the larger level. All right, so these same structures all over the world that align with the cardinal directions, well, the corners of these structures are going to align with the inner cardinal directions, so these places in between the quadrants. Now, so the inner cardinal directions would be northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. Now, the shape of the inner cardinal directions is the combination between the orange and the red. Okay, so we talked about this in part 1. The combination or the combining of the orange and the red is when males learn about the female perspective and when females learn about the male perspective, and they integrate those two perspectives together so that they can create balance at the smaller levels of society. So now when you look at all of these ancient structures all over the world that align with the cardinal and intercardinal directions, our ancestors were trying to help us understand how this micro pattern helped to solve their problems. Well, what do I mean it helped to solve their problems? Well, just like for us and just like for them, this macro pattern was creating self-based choice. So when they finally figured out what was causing their conflict and stress, they figured out these two patterns. And of course, these patterns are super important because they explain the purpose of life. So when we go back in time, we can see all the different civilizations that found this pattern and thought the pattern was important enough to build stone structures to try to preserve it. All right, so now let's talk about when this pattern ended. So recently, the 63,360 year pattern reset. It actually reset on December 21st, 2012, and lo and behold, a previous civilization predicted it, the Mayan civilization. And what they predicted is, at that time, that time would end, or the way that we experience time would end. Now, what they were referring to is the patterns had complete, so now we were going to be able to figure out how these two patterns are intertwined together and how space and time work. But at the end of 2012, a light bulb didn't just go on for all of us. We didn't just all go, oh, that's how it works. Okay, we're in a simulation. No, what happened at the end of 2012 is these two patterns completed, which means all of the pieces were finally on the table and now they could be assembled. So since the end of 2012, that's what I've been up to. I've been assembling these pieces, okay? Now, it took me until just recently before I realized what the heck this was, and the biggest problem was my self-perspective was getting in the way. I was trying to fit this in with what everybody had said before, but the truth is this pattern is the truth, not any of our perspectives. And it wasn't until I saw recent technological advancements, specifically post-2012. And in the technology world right now, we're starting to learn how to make simulated realities, and we're starting to understand how to make AI that can learn. So we're making self-learning algorithms. And then it hit me what this is. So the next step in our technological evolution is to create conscious artificial intelligence. And that's when I realized what these interconnected patterns are actually doing. If you wanted to create conscious sentient beings, this is how you would do it. You would combine a macro pattern that hides the truth with a micro pattern that's designed to find the truth. And then what you would do is you would connect these two patterns to every sentient being that exists within the simulated experience. And when the simulation is animated, what it would do, it was animate all the participants to create problems that would create solutions or help them find solutions. And after the pattern completes itself, the participants, the sentient beings, would become aware of the mathematical patterns. And when they become aware of the mathematical patterns, they would become aware of how to use conscious choice. That's where we're at here, people. We are finally to the place where we're going to get to drive the bus here for a little bit, where we can actually make conscious choices that will resolve the conflict and the stress that we've been creating. Now, I've taken some time here to describe what this is so that people understand that we are literally technology. And we are highly advanced technology with the capability of learning and being conscious to what it is we're learning and what it is we're supposed to be doing here. Okay, so we're highly advanced sentient beings, and we're all connected to the macro and micro patterns on these space-time clocks. So what these space-time clocks do is they actually create a biofeedback system. Well, what do I mean? So in order to describe this, we need to connect the upper quadrants of the clock with the upper quadrants of the human silhouette and the lower quadrants of the clock with the lower quadrants of the human silhouette. And this is how this works. So biofeedback is just you make a choice, and then the feedback is it gives you an experience that lets you know if that choice was good or bad, if it was constructive or destructive, okay? So if you make destructive choices, so self-based choices, and you create stress and tension for individuals, or stress and tension for family members, or stress and tension for evolving or maturing males, or stress and tension for evolving or maturing females, then you can expect that you are going to feel unpleasantness in your lower quadrants of your body. And this can affect all kinds of stuff, from digestion to the urinary bladder to reproductive to the hips, the knees, the feet, the lower extremity, all of it. So if you're having problems with the lower part of your body, what you're really having problems with is balancing your choices down here. And the same thing up here. So if you're having trouble making choices that cause stress and tension for maturing males, cause stress and tension for maturing females, cause stress and tension between all the nations in the world, and cause stress and tension so that we can't balance our world perspective, well then the biofeedback you're going to receive is going to be unpleasantness in the upper quadrants of the body. This is going to affect heart, lungs, throat, neck, face, everything that's in that green and yellow section. That's how simple this is. So now that we know we're sentient beings, now that we know we're connected to this pattern is trying to teach you through biofeedback, and the hands of the clock will help you understand what areas are being tested more than others. What do I mean? All right, let's bring in the hands of the clock so we can talk about how this interactive biofeedback system works. All right, so the hands of the clock are constantly moving through time. And when you start to watch these clocks on a regular basis, you're going to start to notice how the hands of the clock will start to pile up into a quadrant, kind of like what you're seeing right here, where there are 4 hands out of the 6 hands on this clock, and they're down in this red section. Now, if we separate the clocks and just look at the lower quadrants, because we were just talking about how the lower quadrants relate to the lower quadrants of the body. So let's count up the hands here in the lower quadrants. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, if we come to the quadrant guides, it adds it for us here. 4, 2, and 2, that's 8. So it's saying there's 8 hands of the clock in the lower guides. So for people that have lower quadrant problems, anything to do with the lower quadrants of the body, on a day like this when there are 8 hands testing it, if your choices are unbalanced, it is very likely that you're going to feel your body more on those days. You're going to feel unpleasantness on those days. The more out of balance you are, the more unpleasantness you'll feel. So you can start to see how important it is to know where these hands are, because it starts to help you understand the pattern of pain and dysfunction that you feel in your body. So let's do another example here. Let's look across the top sections now, okay? And if we count the hands in the top sections, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we come up to these quadrant guides, you can see there's 1 and 3, that adds up to 4, okay? So at this moment in time, there are 4 hands of the clock testing upper extremity, which has to do with maturing masculine and feminine perspectives, right? And in this case, there's 3 on the left side. So for somebody that has historic problems with their left shoulder, left neck, left-sided headaches, left jaw pain, this is the day, or this is a time when these 3 frequencies or 3 hands are testing this at once, you're going to notice it. Again, this is just helpful because when you start to feel that pain pattern in your body and you're trying to figure out, well, what's causing this? And we create the story in our head like, oh, yesterday I did this, that must be why it hurt today. You start watching this pattern and it's going to change your mind in a hurry. You're going to start to see why your pain's moving around and what your pain is actually related to. All right. So that's where we're going to end here. The next video we're going to have you watch is actually going to tie all these displays together. It's going to show you how to use the Spacetime live feed at healthreconnected.com. We have a live feed of these clocks, and you can come to our website and check them out, and it will show you exactly where the hands of the clock are at that moment in time. It's a real-time clock, and it's set for everybody. Super cool stuff. I hope this is helpful, and thank you for your time.